All right, this is Cafe Racer Podcast, episode 58. I'm Crash.
I'm Steven.
All right, that went off remarkably well. I'd say that we ended our losing streak of messing this up.
Have you ever noticed that a certain other motorcycle podcast, when they do their introductions, there's two people on the show. I'm not going to mention the name of the podcast.
There's a lot of duo podcasts out there with two people on the show, so that, it's not too specific.
It's kind of broad, right?
Mm-hmm.
They might also both be female.
Okay.
But you ever notice how one of them, when she says hello, she goes, hello, hello.
No.
There's that weird hello that she does. I meant to call her on it and say something to her about it.
It's funny.
She'll probably say, no, that's not true, but...
There's a video that floated around the internet a while ago of, everybody, when you say, like, you kind of build up a rhythm of, like, how you say certain phrases. Right. And, as a news anchor or something, you're always saying your name at the end of everything or whatever, at the end of your, 5 minutes or whatever. And there's this guy, I don't even know what radio station he's from, but his name's Gustavo Almodovar. And somebody put, like, a supercut together of every time he's ever said his name. And so it's like, because he has this, like, Gustavo Almodovar, and it's like that over the course of like 50 different videos he's done for this news channel. And it's just him saying it over and over and over again, and it sounds identical every single time with the same little head flip and eyebrow thing that he does.
So this guy's practiced this a lot, right? Yeah.
He's probably practiced. But, I mean, even I do the same thing. Like, when I say certain phrases, I say them the same way every time.
Mine usually swear words that are said the same.
Yeah, I do that, too.
Yeah.
But, hey, you know what? You and I were both in the public service industry, and they're kind of sweary groups of people.
Why is that, too?
I don't know.
Like, the F-bomb in the fire department seems to be, like, a normal term as part of the vernacular, and it's used for so many different things. And when I first met my wife, she's like, you say that word a lot. And I'm like, what word? And she said it, and I'm like, no, not really. And she's like, yeah, like every other word that comes out of your mouth is the F-bomb. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, when I transitioned from working in the street to working in administration, it's like my first week in administration, a couple of the other chiefs were like, hey, man, you got to watch it with the F-bomb in here. There's women working in the office. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? I haven't said anything wrong. They're like, yeah, you keep dropping an F-bomb. And I didn't even know what that term meant because I thought it was a regular word. So
yeah, well, like when I don't know how it is right now. Now, when I went through Navy boot camp, they had all these signs up that say profanity is not quality leadership.
Right.
And I'm like, really? I'm at boot camp. Every other word that I hear is like some very elaborate swear word.
Right.
So,
or some combination of very elaborate swear words.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't quite as extreme as like the opening scenes of Full Metal Jacket, but that is actually a surprisingly accurate representation of what boot camp is, and it's it's supposed to put you all through those same sort of meat grinder thing to turn these 80 people who have never talked to each other and have no interest in ever getting to know each other into a unit that has a shared experience, as well as teach them a couple things along the way.
Like when I taught paramedic school, it was different because we were in the college setting, so we had to really be careful for our language and tone down our actions a little bit. But you get in the firehouse and you try to, especially when you're in the public eye more. When I first started, we didn't run emergency medicine. We were firefighters. That was it. So then the more you got in the public eye and you're running into people's homes and providing medical care, it's a lot different now. You have to really kind of behave yourself. But it was, when back in the 80s, early 80s when I started, it was a lot different. the stuff that went on. Nowadays, not a quarter of that kind of goes on, but the language is kind of still there.
Yeah.
And I have to
So
really watch it around my granddaughter too. It's going to be her first word.
yeah, the I'm pretty sure that this is a motorcycle show though, and we are like way down a crazy rabbit hole.
It is a
um,
motorcycle show, huh?
wait, yeah, I think so. Um, I think
Anyway,
that's what our supporters support us to talk about anyway.
we got a bunch of mail on the website. Did you know that?
We did?
Yeah, there's a bunch of comments on here I've been moderating, and I think they're all from Nigerians.
Oh, I've been seeing a lot of those too. Like the hey, you've got a new, track back or link or whatever. Like
Yeah, great show, mate. And then there's like an
yeah.
ad for, Viagra on
I
here.
don't know. I don't know what happened, but there must have been like some shift, like some loophole found in our comment, what with the system that we use for comments, because we weren't getting anything for a very long time. Like there was almost no spam comments, and then all of a sudden, over the last week, it's like just through the roof. So I don't know if we suddenly became a target for someone, or if a new method of circumventing the like prove you're a human kind of thing.
I gotta check our spam filter. We've got. I'll have to look at that and see.
Yeah. Um, but as far as motorcycle related stuff, I'm going on a trip to Utah starting tomorrow.
Yeah,
Um,
what have you been doing to get ready for that?
well, not so much get ready, but just I kind of a bunch of things all kind of came together at once. I'm almost at my 24,000 mile mark on the bike, and that's valve check, oil change if you didn't just do it, which I just did it, so I
Hmm.
don't even need to do that. It's a couple of like it's one of the more like extensive periodic maintenance checks.
So
And
you're gonna do the valve check yourself?
yeah, I've done the valve check before. I didn't have to do any adjustments, which was really good because
Hmm.
I don't have like an easily I have shims that I have to install for
Hmm.
adjustments instead of I don't have like a nifty little screw or anything like that. I don't know why they don't just didn't just do automatically adjusting valves like
A
because
car?
yeah, it's a low rev motorcycle. It's not gonna it would it's not too high stress to
Probably
need
have automatic adjustments, don't they?
I don't know. It would make sense.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I got let's see, I got some other stuff. I found on one of the forums. I got a three piston brake caliper from one of the. There's a Honda three piston caliper that mounts directly up to the Bonneville, so it replaces the stock two piston caliper and puts on a new three piston caliper
In the rear, right?
in the front.
In the front.
Yeah, because
Single brake in the front on that bike?
yeah, there's a single disc in the front. Um,
Interesting.
so because a lot of people complain about the brakes, and I haven't really had a huge issue with them. But I figured if I could find, I was poking around the forums for other stuff one day, and I ran across it, and I was like, oh, I've got the money for that. I'll get that. So I bought it, and then I was waiting to install it because I also ordered new brake lines from Dime City
Mhm.
Cycles because they have a kit. A lot of guys that shorten their handlebars through either putting lower bars or clip-ons on end up with this big unit with this big swoopy loop in your brake line because you end up with like 6 inches too much brake line,
Right.
and it sticks out all funny and whatnot. Well, they have a kit you can order that it's basically it's a Galfer brake line set that they had kind of custom made and then packaged into a kit
Hmm.
that is made for if you've already shortened your brake lines. There's a couple companies that do it. British Customs has one too, and maybe theirs would have actually fit better. But I ordered the one from Dime City because they had a rear brake line kit as well. And Triumph recommends you replace the brake lines every 4 years, and I figured I've never done them, and it's been like 5, so I might as well. Um, I got the front and rear kit. Rear went on just fine. The front ended up being a little too short. I don't know. I mean, my clip-ons are a little taller than your average clip-ons, so it didn't quite make it. So I called Galfer, and they were supposed to have sent. I was supposed to have gotten the new one today, and that didn't happen. So it's a good thing I saved the old brake line because otherwise I wouldn't be going anywhere.
Oh, yeah.
So I've got the old big brake line on now, and then I also got a new master cylinder reservoir. British Customs sells one that mounts directly to the master cylinder instead of having the little hose and then the little cup that attaches to your handlebar.
Right.
The little translucent plastic cup. It's just an aluminum reservoir that you mount down directly onto the master cylinder. And it's smaller. It looks really nice. So I got that, and it definitely helped sort of the top line of the motorcycle kind of flatten out, because like I've got the 1 gauge on, and it's a lot flatter than the original gauge setup. So the line across the top of the bike is now a lot smoother. It's not broken up by as much stuff sticking up.
I never noticed the handlebars being or the brake lines being too long when I saw the bike before. Did you have them like?
It was tucked away really well.
Right.
My wife is calling me. I'll have to text her and say, hey, call me later. But yeah, so they were tucked away pretty well. But the other thing is there's a clamp on the lower triple tree where the brake line is supposed to clamp to that to help kind of guide it. And that had broken because of the pressure that was put on it by moving the handlebars closer, and then the bend in the brake line was a little too severe, and so it like put extra pressure on the brake on that clamp, and that clamp eventually broke off. But it was sort of like if you looked at my caliper, there was a lot of extra brake line kind of sticking out right there down at the bottom of the fork leg.
And I was looking at the top. I don't think I noticed that from the bottom,
Yeah, so now when I get this new one, it'll just be a much straighter shot up to the top.
What are you taking for bags? The normal bags you have on there?
I was looking at that today. I was going to post a picture and give James from the Pace a hard time, because he gave me a hard time for Overland Expo about packing a million things. And this time I've gotten everything into my tank bag, and that's it.
Really?
Yeah, I'm only going to be gone for the weekend. I'm driving 1 day there. I'll be there for a couple of days, and I'm driving 1 day back.
Yeah, the truth of the matter is I think I could probably pack a lot of clothes in my tank bag if I didn't take cameras.
Yeah, and I don't have a camera as large as yours, so if I even take it, it's going to be my small little point and shoot. And then there isn't really any plan to record much of anything while I'm there, so even if I take anything, I would just take my recorder by itself. But I don't think I'm going to need it, because I'm just going for fun, and it's not really motorcycle related at all. It's kind of a big nerd event.
This is the one that you went to. This is about the podcasting, right?
Yeah. So I'm going to a thing. It's called Nerdtacular. It's a fan event for fans of a certain network of podcasts called the Frog Pants Network. It's really professional sounding name for a network. But it fits.
No Frogs War Pants, actually, but
yeah,
if you say so.
So yeah, that's what I'm going for. I'm actually staying with Chuck from the Wheel Nerds. So
really?
Yeah.
You gonna make out with a dog while you're there?
I have no plans to. And any pictures
that's some sort of requirement.
Any pictures that surface later of that happening are photoshopped. I'm just putting that out there now. I didn't do it.
So we can expect pictures of you making out with the dog, is what you're telling me?
Probably not.
Okay.
We may try to do something with the Wheel Nerds while I'm there, but I'm not. The schedules are weird, so.
Yeah, it'd be cool if you could.
Yeah, I'll definitely try to.
How long is the drive?
It's about 10 hours. It's going to be a long ride.
Yeah, it's going to be a long day. That's 10 hours with stops or without?
Without.
Man, it's going to be a long day.
It's going to suck. Yeah. I'm really planning on getting on the interstate and just hating the entire trip from start to finish.
All right. What's your weather going to be like, okay?
Hot.
Or hot. Yeah. Well, I feel for you. I know what that's like. So speaking of heat, the Stelvio has been acting really weird with a lot of engine heat. more, and I made a couple calls to some buddies to say, how do you know what's too much on an air-cooled motor? And I posted something on the ADV forum, and the immediate response I got back was, well, it's summertime, and it's going to be hotter, and it's mostly ambient air temperature, and I kind of bought that for a second, and then I remembered
Yeah.
I bought the bike in August, and I rode it to North Carolina, and then rode it back home, and it didn't feel this hot. And even in some of the hotter spots we were in on the trip, it didn't feel this hot. And then the kicker was at 5:30 in the morning, a mile from the house, it was unbearable. So something's wrong. All the
Yeah.
fluids are right. The valve adjustment I thought was right. I checked it recently when I got back from the trip, changed all the fluids out. So the issue of timing came up. A couple of people said maybe your timing's off. Well, why would it be? So I took the bike's under warranty. I took it in to see what's going to happen, and then the discussion kind of came up over the weekend when I took the other bike out and was hanging out with some guys. And one thing that they told me, which I never thought of was a good idea, was replace the dipstick with an oil temperature gauge, a dipstick that's got a temp gauge on it. I never thought about that. So I may do that so I can kind of tell what the baseline is. And one of the other guys had said to go buy one of those Raytec cameras that that you can buy at like Home Depot for $50. So you shoot like a laser on the thing and it tells you what the temperature of the surface temperature is.
Yeah.
So get some baseline readings on the other bike, basically the same motor, bring it up to operating temperature, shoot some baselines, and they said shoot the inlet and the outlet of the oil cooler too to see what the temperature of the oil going is and what it's coming out. Sitting without air flowing through it, just to see what dissipates. So I'm going to do that on the Le Mans to see what it looks like, and then when I go pick up the Stelvio, if they can't find out what's wrong with it. But I'm telling you, man, it's just been where you can't even have your legs next to the motor. It's so hot, like it's burning up.
That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
I wonder if maybe there is something in your oil cooler that's like
blocking it,
clogged it. So it's like so it's like only very the oil's going through it, but not nearly as much, and or whatever.
Well, that could be a possibility, and what I'm worried about now that you mention that, now that I think about it, is they repaired the pan before I went on the trip by putting a Gila Coil in. So if for some reason some of that material broke off inside there, I'm not really sure how it travels to the oil cooler.
Yeah.
If it could have made it there, or if it would have stayed on the, I'm not 100% sure. But like I said, the bike's under warranty, so they have it now. Hopefully they'll figure it out. He did say if my adjustments were off at all, it would cause some heat issues on the valves. But I can't imagine that minor amount of adjustment. Like I said, I checked that before, and they were dead on. So, well, let me rephrase that, because with the feeler gauge, a lot of that's feel.
Yeah.
And I placed it between the tappet, and it would drag, not where you had to pull it in and out, but just a slight drag on it. So to me, that was the correct adjustment. And that was adjusted with the motor cold, dead cold, overnight cold. And somebody else said, well, when I do my bike, I warm it up, get it to operating temperature, then check the valve. Not everything I've read says at a dead cold, you check it.
Yeah.
When you do yours, what do you do it, cold?
I'd have to look it up again. It's been so long since I did it, and I haven't looked up the procedure. While you talk, I'll look it up, though. I've got the manual on the computer, so.
So anyway, that kind of brought a level of frustration that, I want to work on my own motorcycle. There's some things I've never done before, that I'm not opposed to reading a book and figuring it out. But there's just these little like tips and tricks that when you're a mechanic, you kind of know these things. I mean, luckily I've got like a good network of friends I can pick up the phone and call that are mechanics. And one of my buddies is a marine diesel engine mechanic, and he was giving me the tips about using the Raytec gun to check the outside temperature. Yeah. I said, well, do you use that in marine? And she goes, we use them all the time, And he goes, that's how you know what your normal operating temperature is on the outside of the motor. Gives you an idea what the oil temperature is at. So I'm going to do that. That way I kind of have an idea, baseline on the Le Mans. I know the bikes aren't the same, but they're both air-cooled V-twin Moto Guzzi motors.
Yeah.
So it should be close. And I'm hoping that it's not anything, catastrophic. But if it is, the bike's under warranty. So
yeah. So on
Guzzi,
the Bonneville, valve clearance adjustment must be carried out with the engine cold.
That's what everyone said, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, and they don't even, they recommend dead cold overnight, not like 3 hours after the bike's cooled down. So
Yeah.
that's how I did it the last time. And there was some other, like, one of the tips I'd read, you've got the two sets of rockers on either side with your intake and your exhaust valves, and one person had told me to use two sets of feeler gauges with the same. So if the exhaust is, 15 millimeters, use two 15 millimeter feeler gauges. Somebody else told me, no, don't do that. Make sure you use the same feeler gauge for each one, because now you might have a slight variation in size between the feeler gauges. I don't know.
That sounds like snake oil. like like if you have a feeler gauge, I mean, if you don't think your feeler gauge is accurate, I could understand maybe like doing the check with one feeler gauge and then trying it again with another, just so that you're like, all right, well, they both are the same.
It's both the same, right? And
But
something
like,
else I had read was cleaning out the oil between that, taking a little brake cleaner and making sure there's no oil between those, no lubrication
yeah,
when you use the feeler gauges. So again, I can't imagine that if the
that
spec
sounds
is
like
15 and I've got it at 15.5, that there's going to be that much added heat to the motor. It feels much worse than that.
yeah.
Like they were way out, and that's not the case. So
Yeah, I don't know.
we'll see. It just has me a little worried, and especially since that's the bike I commute on every day.
Right. So I got something in the mail today. I actually was really kind of confused because I was looking, I have a pretty good idea of what packages are probably going to be coming in the mail and that sort of thing, and the uh, postman like knocks on my door and like, oh hey, and he hands me this box. I'm like, what is this? Like, it feels awfully heavy, and it's kind of square. What's in here? And for those of you that can't see that are listening, it's the Jupiter's Travels in Camera book from Ted Simon. It's got all the pictures in it
Yeah,
that
I'm
he
really
took while
jealous.
he did his trip. Yeah. And there's his little he wrote for Christopher and then signed it. So
Really,
uh,
really jealous.
yeah. So you can order
That's
it.
the We talked about that on one of the previous shows, and those
Mhm.
were Ted had shot all those pictures during his trip, and there was some technical issues with a lot of the photos because he said, although how did he phrase that, Chris? I'm a good photographer, but I don't know it.
I don't know how to use a camera or something like that.
Yeah. So they spent a lot of time. I talked to Paul Smith, one of the editors and writers from ADV Moto Magazine, and he said that the guys that did that spent a lot of time working on those photos and cleaning them up. And the photography in the book is good, but the composition is excellent. It's like a photojournalist had shot them. Really great photographs. And I'm jealous.
Yeah. To continue the show and tell, I guess, and shout outs to friends of the show. Um, Sean Wallace, he's been on the show before. He's a graphic designer. He does T-shirts through a company called Cafe Danger that he and another guy that I know do. There's cool cafe racer style, like artwork T-shirts. Well, he also uh, he has an Etsy store called Evolutionary Studio, or if you just look up Sean Wallace on Etsy. But he does these prints. They're like sort of a kind of a blueprint style line drawing of motorcycles, and this one's the Ducati. You can get the same basic print on a T-shirt as well over at Cafe Danger, cafe-danger.com. But yeah, so I got this.
His T-shirts are really cool, and I like the print. The prints look good on the shirt.
Yeah, but yeah, I got this all framed up. It doesn't come in a frame, but yeah, so you get the print, got it all framed up. Now I just got to figure out where to put it.
This is going to be your office where you're at in here?
Yeah, this is my spare bedroom / office.
Right.
For the past couple weeks, there's been a resident, so it's been sort of. I haven't been in here very much. That's why we did the last record. Why I was on my laptop when we did the last recording.
They still haven't secured domicile yet, huh?
Oh no, he's out now. He moved out yesterday.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he's all good to go. He left his laundry here, but he'll come back.
And I see that they had a release of the FZ07, huh?
Yeah, Christy Farrell from the Motorific podcast got to go ride it for about motorcycles. Like, I guess it's about.com/motorcycles or whatever.
Uh,
I was jealous, mostly not just because she got to go do a motorcycle launch, but because she was up in Seattle, on near Seattle on Bainbridge Island, and I freaking love it, and I miss it up there.
that's one place I've never been. I'd like to go to. Yeah, she told me she was going. I was super jealous too.
Yeah.
That would have been really cool.
But speaking of releases, Buell dropped the 1190 SX on us as well. So
That is some big news we were kind of expecting. They talked about it at AIM last year, and they also had said that this is the SX, right?
hmm
They had talked about an AX version as well, which
yeah,
we're speculating is going to be an adventure bike, maybe kind of like the Ulysses. Um, a little bit longer suspension travel, but still keeping a road-sized front tire, a la Multistrada or Kappa Nord.
yeah,
And so this bike, I was looking at the specs, and it shares pretty much the same specs as the Super bike.
yeah. It's just almost identical.
Yeah, they're just saying they're not sure if it's going to have that 21 level traction control or not.
Right.
But you kind of noticed something on the bike that
Yeah. I jokingly so I was looking at the front of the bike, which has this kind of interesting squarish headlight with LED lights around it. But the overflow reservoir for the radiator is on the right-hand side of the bike, just on the inside of like the little radiator shroud, where it's just wide open for all to see. And I said it kind of looks like a colostomy bag, like
I
half
think
full of pee.
it really looks like that. I mean, it looks like an old man dragging around a pee bag on the front of that thing. I mean, I'm just like you. I would totally paint that.
Yeah,
Um,
I think I'd paint it black, and like I said to you earlier, like leave a little strip that wasn't painted, like a little thin piece of painter's tape down like the middle or the side or something, so that there's still a little bit of translucent
right.
part left where I could check the level, but otherwise
I
it
mean,
would be black.
not only. I mean, how often do you actually look at the puke jug on the bike?
I don't know.
When I had my V-Strom, I don't think I looked at the thing in 11 years. Christy's messaging me on Facebook. I wonder if her ears were burning.
It's funny. Yeah, the only time I ever met my on the Speed Triple, it's the only water cooled motorcycle I've ever owned. It was under the seat, like really tucked in, and I would see it when I had the seat off, um, and I would take a minute to look at it and go, oh, cool, coolant, still there, good, and that was
Yeah,
it.
and they had some issues with some coolant leaks on some of the V-Stroms early on, but mine
Mhm.
never had it.
Yeah,
And I don't know. That thing is so big and so obtrusive looking. They either got to, like you said, if they painted it black and put a level check on there someplace, you would kind of hide it, because
hmm
from the front of the bike everything's black in there. But if you
yeah,
guys go to motorcycle-usa.com, there's a story on there and a bunch of pictures. In the front, I don't know. I'm kind of like torn about whether or not I like the way the front headlight looks.
yeah. It has a
What are your
face
thoughts on that?
kind of thing
Yeah.
going, like
What did you say it looked like?
it looked like a transformer face.
It does. It kind of does. It looks like a transformer face. You know what it is too? Why that is? You notice the kind of the LEDs that surround the headlight. They kind of have like ears
hmm
sticking up, and it's got like a mouth underneath the
Yeah,
thing. It's a Cyclops transformer face, is what it is on the
yeah,
bike. But it's probably a cool bike. Fuel in the
yeah.
frame.
Yeah, it's sticking with the, like I said, yeah, the fuel in the frame and that like inside-out brake rotor that goes around the rim of the front wheel.
I don't know. Just
This is chain drive, unlike the Harley owned or the Harley Buells were
I'm
belt.
gonna reserve comment on how it looks until I get a chance to ride one. I'm hoping maybe they've got one to ride at AIM. They had bikes there last year, but nothing to ride, and maybe this year they will. So, every bike that I've ever looked at that I said I didn't kind of like it, and then I kind of rode the thing and went, yeah, I kind of like that bike.
Yeah, I understand. Like it's that whole like you don't see with your butt kind of thing. Like when you're on
Right.
the bike and you're riding, if it's a good experience, then you don't really care what it looks like so much.
Well, it's like the Diabell. I thought that was kind of a polarizing look until I rode the thing, and no, I don't care. The bike was fun.
Yeah.
It's just it's like speaking of riding bikes, not to change the subject,
No, that's
go off in
cool.
another direction. Continental GT, my buddy's bike. When I get back, I'm going on a trip as well, leaving
Every time
tomorrow.
you say that, I'm like, you mean tires? And then I remember that there's a
Yeah,
motorcycle.
no, yeah, he's going to bring it to one of the meets, and I'm going to get a chance to ride it, and I'm kind of excited about that because I really want one of those. And I'm just kind of wondering, I'm wondering if they're going to be lower price on the secondary market, or if they'll even kind of show up right away. Because the bike's only 6 grand, so like after a year, somebody has one and they're, yeah, this thing's kind of small. I want something bigger, especially for a first bike. I wonder what they'll be going for used after a year. I
Yeah.
mean, you think it'll be something you can get for $3,000 or not?
I don't know. We also, we'll have to see what the build quality, like the reliability is like. They're probably fine. I'm not trying to say that I think they'll be bad. I just don't know.
Well, I mean, for the way it looks good, but that
Yeah.
doesn't really say a whole lot on, on how they're put together and how long the longevity of the motor, and if people start hammering them and stuff. And I
And
haven't really
I
seen.
don't know what the durability of the previous bullets has been. I'm guessing it's been fine. I haven't heard that, you know, they're terrible or something. So I'm guessing they're pretty at least average.
Yeah, it's not, and that's a low revving motor too, right? It's
Hmm.
not like it's going to be something that you're going to put a lot of wear on, but we'll see. The bikes look great. One of the guys brought one up to the one of the meetups, and the thing looked really cool. Nothing, I took a good look at it again, seeing it like in somebody's actually riding it and owning it. Nothing looks really chintzy or cheap on it. I know it kind of
Hmm.
got painted a little bit for the tank seam around the bottom, but you really can't tell. It's not a big deal. The bike sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
It wasn't bad, but I'm digging it. And you know, for 6 grand for a brand new bike, and I think it's the same thing, a 2 year unlimited mileage warranty. How can you go wrong? It'd be a
Yeah.
cool weekend bike, but we'll see. I probably won't buy one brand new. If I do, I'll wait a couple years and see if there's any leftovers or bikes in the secondary market. And that way, you kind of get the bugs out of it and see how the first year release on it was, whether or not
Right.
it turns out to be a piece of junk.
Hmm. Well, I actually need to wrap things up. Apparently, I need to go put a fire out, but not literally a fire, but
All right,
um,
we can.
quick little episode. We kind of covered everything I think we were planning on covering anyway. Um, and
Mention the Patreon again, and then
Yeah, yeah, well, I'll definitely. So, real quick shout out. There's still a small enough number of you that I can just do this by reading your names off. Dave, James, Rob, Chris, Travis, Jim, and John have all either donated through PayPal or contributed over on patreon.com/Cafe Racer Podcast. We are super appreciative, and those of you that are at the sticker pack level, we are closer and closer to being able to actually send those out. We still are waiting on our own stickers actually to be made and whatnot. So it won't be too much longer, we promise. And if you're looking at trying to get in on that, like I said, go over to patreon.com/Cafe Racer Podcast. Or you can type Crash up in the search bar up there, or you can just go to our website and click support the show, and there's links to that there. Anything else we need to cover?
no, we can any mail or questions you guys got, send them to us via the Facebook page or the website.
Yep.
And check us out on Twitter at Cafe Racer Pod and on Instagram at Cafe Racer Podcast.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for listening to our short little show. He and I, Steve and I, are both going on trips this weekend, so there's not enough time to do a regular weekend show. But we hope you enjoyed this little bite-sized one. and we'll be talking to you again soon.
Get out there and ride.
Yeah. Take it easy.